got a letter from my dead wife. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared. I just watched as my wife stepped off the rooftop in front of me. She plummeted to the earth with a sickening crunch. I was still unable to move from shock as I heard the screams of the poor pedestrians that saw a woman die. At the time, I had no idea why she did it. Whenever anyone asked, I lied. I said it was an accident. I said she tripped. I said I called her name. Mary. I tried to save her. They all believed me. No one even questioned if it was the truth. No one wanted to consider that someone they loved would take their own life. After Mary took her life, mine was empty. I had no friends. Anyone I did know had little sympathy for me. Even my first wife and kids didn't do so much as get a condolence card. My life was dull and gray. That was when the first letter arrived. Dear John. I opened it walking to my house from the mailbox. I almost collapsed. It was Mary. I would recognize her handwriting anywhere. I ran inside my house and began to read the letter from my dead wife. Dear John, I loved you so much. I truly did. I loved you so much, it began to hurt. It began to hurt because it was clear that you didn't love me. What? I was so confused I couldn't hold it in. What did she mean? If she loved me as much as she said she did, then she wouldn't have taken everything from me. I read on. It was the little things. The way your smile would slightly drop when I walked into the room. The way you didn't hug me or hold my hand. The way you got angry at every little thing. It swiftly progressed. You never smiled. You refused to be affectionate. You were angry all of the time. What a sick joke. I thought that maybe someone that hated me might be playing a sick prank. Maybe one of my neighbors found out and decided to have some disgusting fun. I didn't bother reading the rest. I tore it up and threw it in the fireplace later that night. A few more days passed and I forgot about that sick joke of a letter. I went to work and returned. The house was too quiet nowadays, so I usually drank while I listened to the radio. One night, however, there was a knock on the door. I left my seat and opened it. Nothing. I thought at first, but then I looked down and saw another letter. Grabbing it, I returned to my seat. I tore it open and started reading. Dear John, you burned my last letter. Why would you do such a heartless act? Well, it's just in your nature. Huh? How would they know I burned it? I didn't tell anyone about the letter. Nevertheless, about burning it. It's rather funny in a way, given that everything you touch gets destroyed in one way or another. I was speechless. I skimmed through the rest of the letter. It was just full of insults and lies. I downed the rest on my drink. Once again threw the letter onto the fire. The moment the paper touched the flame, a loud noise startled me. Bang! It came from above me. So without thinking, I ran upstairs. My bedroom was open. It swung wildly due to the wide open window in my room. I entered my room. But as I was going to close the window, I noticed it. Large red text on the wall. Regrets again? My head hurt, and I began to feel sick. What a horrible practical joke to play. And to break into and vandalize my house. That was too far. I decided that I should get the police involved. I reached into my pocket. Crap, I thought as I felt nothing. I walked back down the stairs and into the sitting room. The radio was playing the news as I searched for my phone. I looked around the room until something caught my attention. A local woman, Mary Cooper, died in an accident last week. The local 27-year-old school teacher tragically fell to her death. She was married to disgraced businessman John Cooper, most well-known foe. The usually calm and professional voice became hysterical and distorted. You killed her, didn't you, John? No! No! I shouted reflexively. She loved you and you blamed her. You're a monster, you're a mew! I picked up the radio and threw it across the room, cutting off the horrible voice from spewing any more lies. I did not kill my wife. I loved her. I left my entire life for her. Why did I do that? Maybe I'm a monster. No! I shouted into the empty room. I sank to the floor, my head in my hands. Without the radio, the silence was sharp and painful. It filled the house. It filled my head. Just silence. Until it was broken. A knock on the front door. Again. That fucker is going to pay this time, I thought, as I got to my feet and yanked the door open aggressively. Nothing. No one was there. No one was in the street. There was no one anywhere. Then, hesitantly, cautiously, I looked down. When I looked down, I saw the city beneath me. I turned around and realized where I was. The rooftop. Mary stood, gazing out at the city. I stood silently, but then I didn't. I don't love you, I said plainly. She looked at me and said, I know. I hate you. She didn't say anything. I want you out of my life. I want my old life back. My actual wife. My kids. She turned away from me and back towards the city. Do it. If you love me, then die for me. As soon as the words left my mouth, I watched as Mary stepped into the nothingness. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared. I just watched. I stood for a moment, back outside my house again. I went inside. I killed her. I killed Mary. And I'm sorry, I just wanted my old life back. Before I even knew she existed. She didn't deserve it. But I do. I could live with the guilt, knowing what I've done, or I could not. I've made up my mind already. I've made up my... Officer Jackson Parker, a policeman from Todmorden, West Yorkshire in the United Kingdom, witnessed a number of unusual incidents that could be interconnected. Although his kidnapping during a police patrol is the central story, some incidents surrounding his case seem related. Jackson Parker did not choose to be kidnapped, but revealing his case in the press and its connection to a previous unusual case threatened his future. Mysterious death before the kidnapping. A few months before encountering a UFO, Parker dealt with a mysterious case. In the afternoon, 3:45 p.m. on June 11th, 1990, the body of Edward Miller, who had been missing for 5 days and lived in a village 30 kilometers from the site, was discovered. Parker was called to investigate. The body was lying on its back, with clothing that appeared to have been dressed by another, the jacket unevenly worn, shoes tied incorrectly. There were no tracks to indicate how the body arrived at the location, making it seem as if it had fallen from above. The situation became more puzzling when the body was examined by a coroner, suggesting death from a heart attack possibly caused by severe fright 8 hours prior, with strange burn marks and an unusual substance found on the back of the neck. The substance was not from Earth, leading to speculation that he had been abducted, killed, and then placed there. A few months after the Miller case, Jackson Parker had a similar experience. In the early morning of November 28th, 1990, while on duty, he was investigating a case of disappearing cattle, which vanished without leaving any trace on the ground. That morning, while patrolling in his police car, he saw a bright light on the road ahead, approaching within about 15 meters. He stopped and saw a silent, hovering vehicle about 1.5 meters off the ground, with the lower part rotating counterclockwise and the upper part appearing as a row of windows. The 4-meter-tall, 6-meter-wide object caused nearby trees to shake without noise or heat. Parker tried to contact headquarters via radio without success, stayed in the car, and sketched the vehicle. The vehicle hovered around him, and he felt an itch in his left foot, his shoe splitting by itself. Later that night, He returned to the scene with 3 police officers, found the cattle in a fenced park without any tracks, leaving the mystery unsolved. On the night of the incident, Parker shared his story with colleagues, discovering that several citizens reported seeing unusual lights in the area. A year later, a journalist connected Parker to both the Miller case and the mysterious object, publishing his story as a victim of alien abduction, affecting his personal and professional life. He was not taken seriously at work, and his superiors did everything to make him resign. A year after, Parker agreed to hypnosis to recall the events, revealing that he had exited his patrol car and was hit by a light beam from the vehicle, causing him to panic, return to the car, and lose consciousness. He was taken somewhere and woke up in a room with another person with a white beard, wearing a white robe, approximately 2 meters tall. Other smaller beings. But the hypnosis ended before revealing how the abduction stopped, or how his shoe ripped. Strangely, 3 years before the abduction, Parker was beaten by 3 suspects while attempting an arrest, resulting in the removal of one of his testicles, rendering him sterile and unable to have sexual relations with his wife. A few months later, a strange sound filled the room while they were sleeping, and the next day, it seemed he was healed. That evening, they were able to make love, and a few weeks later, his wife was pregnant, a recovery deemed miraculous by doctors. The couple remains convinced that extraterrestrial beings were involved in all these events. A person named Salam, from the south of Riyadh, 17 years old, with an older brother aged 27 who took responsibility for him after their father parted from their mother, tells a story. He enjoyed staying out late, often not returning home until after midnight, sometimes even by dawn. Salem had a friend named Ali, and one day, Ali invited him out. Ali had another friend, Faisal, who was the same age as both Ali and Salem. Faisal enjoyed going out and staying up late, but wasn't fond of adventures. The 3 decided to go camping. Since Faisal was scared of horror and jinn, they planned to play a prank on him. They told Faisal they would go barbecuing in the south of Riyadh and stay up until dawn. Faisal agreed, and they set the location on Google Maps. When they arrived, they found many cars and decided to go deep into the wilderness, which was vast. However, before entering, a man tapped on their car window, introduced himself as Abu Hamid, and claimed he had lived there for 10 years. Thinking he was mad, as it was unusual for anyone to live in such a place, they ignored him and moved on. After setting up their camp next to a well, they prepared for the night. It was cold and dark, perfect for sleeping and barbecuing. At 1 a.m., while setting up the tent and barbecue, Ali and Salem discussed jinn to convince Faisal nothing would happen, though they ended up scaring him with a made-up story. Suddenly, lights went out, and Faisal screamed in fear, but it turned out to be part of their prank. They woke up the next afternoon. The sun was strong, and the wind was cold. They decided to leave, planning to pray at any mosque on the way. However, the car wouldn't start due to a battery fault, and panic set in as they realized they were stranded. Their mobile phones were missing, presumed stolen, which was puzzling since they believed no one else was around. As night fell, they ran out of water and locked themselves in the tent, eventually sleeping peacefully. The next day, they discovered an old man's body in the well, seen by Salem and Faisal. But Ali saw nothing. Ali suggested heat stroke or the influence of the madman they had met. They performed dry ablution and prayed for deliverance. At dawn, a man came to them, asked them to extinguish their fire, and offered help. Salem fainted and awoke to find themselves in a room resembling a prison. Faisal explained that Ali had been possessed, taking advantage of Salem's unconscious state during their prank. They then realized Ali had been acting under an influence, especially after not seeing the old man's body in the well. Suddenly, guards entered, blindfolded them, and took them to a room where the old man, presumed dead, sat before them. He revealed they had trespassed on his domain without permission and had taken Ali as his servant. Faisal tried to negotiate forcefully but was killed by the old man. Salam, now 24, had been working as a cleaner for years until he heard of the old man's death and the new ruler's interest in him. To his horror, the new ruler was Ali. Salem, shocked and desperate, decided to risk his life to kill Ali and escape.